Hi, we're here with Mel Buckmaster from Green Bay, De Pere, northern Wisconsin, UP. And we haven't seen each other for a long time, not since early 60s, beginning 70s, when we were both struggling trying to get soccer going in the area for different reasons. How did you get involved, Mel? And how old were you when you got involved with soccer?
I was 19 when I first saw a soccer ball or a soccer game.
Yeah.
Lula Kelsey invited me to see his UW Marinette team play at the old St. Norbert College field, Minahan Stadium. And I went down and I saw the activity and I liked lots of activities, so I went back and I joined the team and was very lucky that that was a team that nobody played soccer prior to joining that team. We had no natives, out of foreign players. It was just good old American boys that hustled and went to the NCAA junior college playoffs in New York.
Yeah.
And got our lunch handed to us big time because we did play people who knew the sport. But that's how I got introduced to it. And so I was 19 when I first played. And I played that spring season. And I started coaching when I was 19 also.
Wow.
So I coached for 51 years.
Yeah.
And from all the clubs, I brought a plate with me. The first youth team in Green Bay was mine. It was called Steve Sitko. And we had Aldo's 3 boys on it.
Oh, yeah.
Aldo was
That's a good start.
There was no soccer in Green Bay at the time, so I had this team made up of a bunch of kids that were getting in trouble. Aldo knew about it. He added his 3 sons, and the only place we could find soccer was in the valley. There was nobody else in Green Bay at that time. So we would get in a Steve Sitko's van, which had no seats, and cover the boys up in moving blankets and come down and play indoor.
Yeah, couldn't do that today. I know we played indoor at Maplewood Middle School in Menasha. Yeah. That goes way back to the 60s.
It sure does.
Yes, yeah.
And so that's how I got started, and then I made the transfer from Marinette campus to UWGB while it was still a 2-year school that spring, and that's where I met Aldo. Lou, I have a reputation as a coach of pushing pretty hard on players, but also high skill, and I attribute that to Lou with his Marine background.
Yeah.
And you were going to be in shape or you weren't playing for Lou. And Aldo was a highly skilled player, and he taught a lot of skills, and then I learned from videos, etc. So
You learned from the best.
Aldo was the best, and then Horst Stemke joined us, and Horst was a very good teacher, older than I was at the time, but he was great to have. So yeah, got to play on the very first team, which 4-year team, which I'm not so sure all the history is straight, but that was an NAIA team, not an NCAA team. What's that?
The Green Bay team was NAIA.
The first year was NAIA, and they just did their 50th anniversary, and I think we've got some wrong information. They showed the picture of the first NCAA team, not the first NAIA team. I've got the roster from that first team. I've got some kind of interesting old stuff.
Yeah, you sent me a copy of that. Yeah, Lula Kelsey was in charge of that first team, and
he was
a mover. Yeah.
Boy, yeah, he had Bart Starr at our practices. We went to Bart Starr's home.
Yeah, and then the connection with Vince Lombardi too.
Yes.
UWGB, Vince Lombardi, and then the soccer team, or the future soccer team at that time.
Yeah, Lou set us up. I remember being at Bart Starr's home and Vince Lombardi coming in. My eyes must have been that big around to meet people of that stature. But,
Yeah, they were so much more approachable back in those days too. The
yeah,
Green Bay Packers, yeah.
I didn't get, obviously, that was the only time I ever met him, but one of the things at that time, I was going to pursue medicine as a career. And Dominic Gentili was the trainer for the Packers. And between Lou Kelsey and Bart Starr, and I got to spend one fall training with the Packers because I then became the, if you will, medic for the soccer team. So I had a dual role. I was a substitute, and I wasn't good enough to start. But I did work on a lot of players with injuries, so that's kind of more of my background. But one of the things, and I'm not sure whether it was a tournament here in the Valley or if it was in Wisconsin Rapids, but I'm pretty sure it was here in the Valley. Came to a tournament with my team, and the game started, and the referee stopped the game because I had a girl on the field. Girls weren't allowed to play at that time. I have an article that says equal opportunity from 1970, I think it's 1972. So most of my coaching in 50 years was with girls, but I had 2 or 3 girls playing already in 70.
Illegally.
Yeah, they said, I said, well, just give me a minute. I went over and talked to my players, and I had a player named Jerry Malott who was, I was 19, he was like 14. We had just a mix of 8 to 14-year-olds on the same team.
Sure, yeah, I remember those days.
And I said, we can play and forfeit with the girls, or we can play just with the boys. And Jerry, way ahead of his time, said, we'll play, beat them, and forfeit. Those were his words. And that's what happened.
Really?
We tied one game, we won the rest. And when they got ready to hand out trophies at the end, I was getting on the bus with my kids, and this woman comes running across the field. She said, where are you going? Where are you going? I said, oh, we're going home. She said, you won the tournament, you got to come over and get your picture taken and all that kind of stuff. I said, no, we had to forfeit. She said, why do you have to forfeit? And I said, because we have girls on our team. And she said, she just turned different colors. And she said, wait right here. Okay. And she ran across the field, and she took her finger, and she was like this in the guy's face. Come find out it was her husband that told us that. So we ended up winning.
Yeah.
We did get, but that's one of the fondest stories I have in my life of working with soccer.
Yeah, and it was pretty common that girls played on boys' team.
Yeah.
We interviewed some of them. Molly Terrian we had here a while back, and she was chosen for the boys' team and fit in very well. You know.
Well, there were no girls' teams then. I had the first all-girls team in the Green Bay area because I think after that they did break them apart, but there was no, where we went, there were no other girls.
It took a while to get that off the ground, you know.
Yeah.
With Title IX, and look at it now. You know, our girls are they're ruling the world.
The women playing today are 10 times better than the men of 30 years ago.
Absolutely.
They are tremendous players.
Yeah, did you watch the game last night?
No. I'm building a home, and I'm working almost around the clock.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So Lou Kelsey and Aldo Santaga were your mentors, and that helped a lot. But you put a lot of your personal time in. I mean, bringing the kids from Green Bay to Menasha and soccer tournaments or indoor games. And then did you get involved in starting a club?
Well, I had that first team, which was the Sitco team.
Yeah.
Then I helped start the Alloway Anchors, that was SAY at the time.
Yeah.
So after the Alloway Anchors got going, I started the Ashwaubenon program. That's where I was coaching high school at the time. So I started those two clubs, and I was coaching for De Pere at the same time. Okay, so that because
The peer repeats, they were called back then.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, the SAY are still called that.
Oh,
They have a SAY division, and they have the
Wisconsin Soccer
yeah,
Association.
yeah, WYSA. So yeah, I wasn't with Rapides when they first started the select, as it was called then. I was coaching the girls' teams for De Pere.
And did you also coach at St. Norbert?
I coached at St. Norbert for 3 years. Yeah.
Really? Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, we had some really good teams there.
Yeah. Was it club team back then, or?
No, it was.
It was varsity already.
Yeah, Lake Forest, Grinnell. Oh man, I can't think of some of the other. Ripon. Some of the schools.
But I remember when they were club, this was 67, maybe 68, and a fellow named Eddie Peabody, who played for the Fox Valley Bombers, he played with St. Norbert, even though he didn't go to school there. He could do it because of...
He played with UWGB. Ed Peabody.
Then he might have gone to GB, right?
Yeah, because he came from Africa.
Right, yeah.
Nigeria.
Wonderful guy, wonderful family.
You may want to edit this, because I'm going to tell a story about Ed Peabody.
I have a couple too.
But Ed came from Africa, he's black, and his feet were, what should I say, oblong. They didn't have, because he was in barefoot until he came out of the bush at 12 years old.
Yeah.
And when I say black, he was as black could be.
Yes, yeah.
And the first day we met, he was taking penalty shots on our goalies and sprained 2 of our goalies' wrists because his shot was so hard. We went to shower that afternoon, and he said, "You're really short." I said, "You're really black." There was no black-white racism at that time. And we hit it off, and Ed Peabody, pretty common name, me being from the UP, I invited Ed to Thanksgiving at my home because he didn't have any. I'll never forget, we drove in my driveway. My mom opens the window, curtain, closes it, and rips back open. I didn't tell my mom Ed was black. He was Ed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I took him to my high school for a basketball game, and the gym literally went from screaming to silent when we walked in.
Yeah.
We didn't have blacks come to the UP then.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
but Ed, oh my goodness. I've never seen anybody strike a ball like Ed.
He was a great player. I saw him in a tournament, and they played against a team that Peter Gietman, who I interviewed, and unfortunately passed away before we could do this, so rest in peace, Pete. He was a great goalie, and Andy took a penalty kick on him, and hit him right in the middle, and Pete actually was lifted up in the air and fell backwards in the goal, and the ball went in. That hard of a shot it was, yeah.
When we would be scrimmaging against Ed and it looked like he was going to shoot, it was like parting of the Red Sea. We're not getting in front of that thing.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. Wonderful, wonderful man.
Yeah.
And wonderful woman too. I remember we just had a newborn, so that would have been 1968, 67, 68. And they came to a game and they had a little present for our son Peter, which
Wow.
it was very touchy. Yeah, really, really touchy. And I don't know what happened to him, where he went after that.
I didn't even know he went to St. Norbert, so he must have.
Yeah, I don't think he went there. He played as a guest.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
I see.
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
On a club team.
On a club team. And
Gotcha.
he played with us as a club team as well, on the
Okay.
Fox Valley Bombers. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But well, if it wasn't for you, soccer would probably still be coming in Green Bay
Oh, sure.
and Deep here. I think we were all ready for that for some reason.
Yeah.
But all these years before, we
I was there for 2 years with teams, and then Aldo decided to start the Green Bay Kickers.
Mhm.
So that was the first club on the west side of Green Bay. I had the Alloway Anchors at that
Mhm.
time, and that was it for several years. And then we got, I think De Pere came in next, then the Howard Hurricanes. Then I had the Ashwaubenon Club, and I think I started another club, but I don't remember.
Oh, yeah, you were the first one in youth and adults too then. Yeah. The Woodlands League, you were involved in that? The
Yeah,
Woodlands High School League?
I helped organize the Woodland League, and I was the first coach of the team in Green Bay, the boys team.
Oh.
I only coached 1 year. I had a young family, and I had the other soccer and traveling, and
It was hard to squeeze it all in.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes family had to suffer a little bit. I was fortunate that my 3 boys all loved soccer and played soccer.
My 3 girls did too.
They did?
Yeah.
Yeah, that helps a lot.
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
Some precious, I always told families when they would try out and there was always a money issue, I said, there's nothing better for a vacation. You'll have no more precious time than to the game, in the motel, and from the game. I said, when you go on vacation, there's all these distractions, but when you go to a tournament, it's just you and the kids, except when they're on the field. And I can't tell you how a number of parents have told me over the years that that was some of the most precious time they had with their kids.
Yeah. And it brought whole neighborhoods together too with youth teams.
Oh, yes.
Because pretty much at one time, maybe 75% of the kids in Neenah played soccer.
Yeah, it wasn't until the last 15 years, maybe even the last 10 years, my first teams were all kids, and they could have been in a 10-block area.
Yeah.
Well, my final high school teams, or high school age teams, I would have 9 to 12 high schools represented.
Yeah.
From Sturgeon Bay to Wapaka to Neenah, all coming in for, that was unique too. That was some good stuff.
And then all it took was Lula Kelsey to take you to a game and see how you liked it. And you were a basketball player, right?
Yeah, basketball and baseball,
Oh, baseball too.
Yeah, I was gonna go play, I drove halfway to South Dakota State to play shortstop for them on a baseball scholarship, and too far away, and came back and went to UW Marinette, and, as short as I am, I was able to play.
Yeah.
But,
Those were the very first years that Marinette had a team then.
yeah.
Yeah.
And our
That was-
coach was Spencer Dunn, 6'11".
Had some pictures taken with him?
I did, because we actually refereed basketball together. And when we stepped on the floor,
Yeah.
it was just, because there I am at 5'3", and he's at 6'11". But we had our own unique way of refereeing, because you're supposed to rotate in and out. You'd be out on one end, and then you'd be under the basket on the next. And unless it was a fast break, we would actually do this every time. So I did a lot of running, because his eyes were up here, he could see all of this. And my eyes were down here, I could see all of this.
Yeah.
And a lot of players didn't like us as a team because we caught things.
Yeah.
That was fun, yeah.
That helped you too in teaching the game with playing basketball, because there's a lot of this. You do it with your hands, obviously, but you still
the same
look,
sport.
look for open spaces. When I always told the kids, when you don't have the ball, do everything you can to help the guy with the ball. Yeah.
It's the same game. The thing that I never understood soccer coaches not doing more of is teaching what basketball did, which is called a pick and roll, which is basically run at a player, and just as you get to him and obstruct him with the language for soccer, you pivot away, and now you're open. So I took that technique from basketball and taught it in soccer.
Yeah, excellent move.
It is. It's not really obstruction, because you don't stay there long enough. You just go to slow them down
Mhm.
or change their direction, and then you what's called roll or pivot away
Yeah.
and serve the ball to the open space.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, there's a lot of similarities there, lesser players. We used to, in the beginning, when kids came out that had never played soccer, play like handball. Have goals, but you could throw the ball
Yeah.
and
I
score.
use that. I use that technique.
And that's a natural for them to get open.
Yep.
And with soccer, they didn't think of that until it was pointed out. Yeah.
All my young teams, our first practices were basketball practices. They all knew basketball.
Yeah.
And so what we would do, and I said, all that's changing now is we're just going to use our feet instead of our hands.
Mhm.
So now we're going to do skill practice, and then we're going to start doing the same thing. Where would you go for basketball? Because I taught it as 2 teams of basketball on the field at one time. Who makes up the team of 5 depends on where we're at on the field. But there's always 5 people directly involved with the ball at all times.
True, yeah.
And then 5 are looking to see whether somebody goes wide or somebody, so it worked really well.
Short-sighted little games within the game, you know.
Yeah, but all my where I was coaching, kids knew basketball, they didn't know soccer, so, and parents understood basketball, so I would explain it to them that we have 2 teams out here, and then we have a goalie back there. Forget about the goalie for now, and now we'll just play with 5, but that 5 that's involved can be changing at all times, and we may serve the ball or cross the ball to the other side, and now a new 5.
A new 5, yes.
So that was just a way for me to communicate with people who didn't know the game.
Right. And sometimes we start out too soon to play them in competitive games too. I have a 2-year-old grandson who's supposed to play on the team in Y in Indianapolis, and I think that's a little too early. In the beginning too, we had big fields. We had 11 on 11.
That was a
But
mistake.
you mentioned that before, the numbers weren't there, so you might have a 10-year-old and a 14, 15-year-old on the same team, and that of course makes a big difference.
Oh my
But we
goodness.
didn't have the numbers, so we had to do
Well,
it.
like I said, we had 8 to 14 on my first team,
Yeah,
and we only had 14 players,
yeah.
so.
But then fortunately, we broke it down to smaller teams, and then we opened it up for the girls at the Paper Valley Soccer Club, and that changed everything too.
Yeah.
A lot more girls came out to play.
Yeah, it was the first real sport where they, back then basketball wasn't even played the same as boys, but finally when the girls got into soccer, they could run and play, and be all over it. The early teams, the girls were always in the back, but that changed.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you'd be very fortunate to have this all happen in Wisconsin, and you've been a big part of it, and got an early start for the rest of the state, and it's still showing. So, hey, thanks very much.
Thank
It
you.
was great seeing you, and great talking to you again.
Nice to see you.
You bet.